det Gry og velkommen til Gründerkanalen pluss mye mer. Vi blir jo snakke om alt mellom himmel og jord som skaper gründersuksess og skaper det aller beste, mest rocka liv. Så la oss hoppe i dagens episode. Hei, det Gry her, og velkommen til Gründerkanalen og episode nummer 53. I dag så skal du få møte Stu McLaren. Stu min mentor og min venn, og han kjenner meg vel kanskje bedre enn de aller fleste, akkurat fordi at han har vært både mentoren min og coachen min og vennen min over en lang periode. Jeg må jo fortelle deg bakgrunnshistorie før vi setter i gang dette intervjuet. Det for øvrig, jeg tror, personlig så det beste intervjuet som noen gang er gjort her på Gründerkanalen, så gled deg. Og det fordi at du skal møte den kuleste, rauseste, den mannen med det største hjertet, rett og slett. Og hvis du har fulgt med meg en stund nå, så vet du det at jeg driver business utifra verdiene mine. Det så viktig for meg å ha de riktige drømmekundene, fordi at da har jeg det best, ikke sant? Jeg håper jo du også velger dine drømmekunder utifra hvordan du ønsker å drive business. Og det gjør også Stu. Og jeg må jo gå i dybden da, hvordan vi traff hverandre. Vi traff hverandre hos Jeff Walker på hans Product Launch Formula, og der sto han på scenen, sammen med Amy, hans nydelige kone, og jeg og Henrik, mannen min, var der. Og han gikk opp der og fortalte om sitt prosjekt ved å bygge skoler i Kenya. Og Henrik så på meg og sa bare, du, vi vil være med her. Dette får vi være med på. Jeg vil dit. Jeg skal til Kenya. Jeg skal være med å bygge skoler. Dette en misjon. Og helt ærlig, nå må jeg være helt ærlig, jeg ikke en byggeskole i Afrikadame. Jeg ikke det. Mens Henrik, mannen min, han elsker sånne ting. Jeg mye flinkere til å gi penger enn å faktisk dra ned og være brikolør, som det heter på fransk. Du, jeg elsker å hjelpe, og jeg tror jo det. Vi gir penger til skoler hvert eneste år i andre land, hvor de ikke har det så fullt så bra skolesystem som de har i Frankrike, i New York eller i Norge. Og jeg tror jo på utdannelse. Jeg tror jo nøkkelen til fred og behag i verden kommer gjennom at vi utdannet, og at vi lærer å se hverandres perspektiv. Så derfor skolegang viktig for meg. Men det å dra til Afrika og bo i telt og male, det var ikke min greier. Men Henrik, han var fast innstilt på det her, og han ønsket å gi de pengene vi hadde spart opp til å kjøpe bil. Og jo da, der for alle bilpengene ut gjennom vinduet, og løp bort til Amy og Stu, og vi connectet med en gang. Det var sånn jeg traff han. Og så drar vi jo på denne fantastiske turen til Kenya, som en av de mest opplevelsesrike opplevelsene, altså turene jeg har hatt i hele mitt liv. Og vi har laget en video, så gå på grysynding.no/53, så ser du litt av herligheten fra den turen. Det den ikke viser at jeg mistet bagasjen min. Jeg gikk altså i en hvit bukse og høyhæla sko. Heldigvis hadde jeg et par sandaler med meg. En liten kasjmirgenser i 5 dager, og da snakker jeg om i telt langt utenfor i Vildemarken. Jeg har aldri bodd så langt ute i Vildemarken. Heldigvis tok mammaen til Stu seg av meg og ga meg en sjokolade når jeg hadde lyst til å grine, og ga meg varme klær. Søstre hans var der, og masse kule folk. Jeff Walker var der. I det hele tatt masse flotte folk som lånte meg både det ene og det andre av flisutstyr. Og det var kanskje like greit, for Gry hadde ikke akkurat pakket til denne turen. Jeg hadde hverken antibac med meg, og jeg hadde 6 par høye sko og masse kjoler, og ingenting ut av det ble brukt. Nei, her vi i Afrika, så det en annen kleskode enn på 4-stjerners hoteller, og Stu ertet meg mye for det. Jeg fikk ikke et glass vin på 10 dager, og mammaen hans redde meg med sjokolade. Men long story, jeg måtte jo bare fortelle deg hvordan jeg traff Stu. Han kjenner meg ganske god. Han vet hvordan jeg blir når jeg blir syk ute i Vildemarken og vil bare hjem og synes dette med altså de omstendighetene vi møtte de ungene på, du kjenner kanskje ikke meg, men jeg er ekstremt sensibel. Altså, jeg tar andre sin smerte veldig inn på meg. Så det å se disse ungene, for å være helt ærlig, grine bare jeg tenker på det, jeg føler smerten deres. Og det var tøft, rett og slett. Innimellom så tøft at jeg klarte ikke å dra ned til landsbyen, for det var det å være sammen med folk som ikke har hus, ikke hjem, har bare klær de står og går i. Det er når du selv sutrer fordi at du ikke har fått kofferten din. Det er et slag i trynet, altså. Men som jeg sier til Stu, at nå setter jeg jo pris på hver gang jeg legger hodet ned på den deilige puta mi, og hver gang jeg kan legge meg i en varm seng og skru på varmeteppet, for det kunne vi ikke der, og det var steinkaldt. Lå der i min hvite bukse og frøs på meg blærekatter igjen. Ok, fra det til Stu. Stu er den aller beste på membership sites. Altså hvordan du lager tribes, hvordan du lager, altså folk henger sammen, hvordan du skaffer deg følgere, og ikke minst har en plass å samle de på teknisk. Det er hans greie. Han har jobbet med verdens beste, og han er en av verdens beste. Det er derfor jeg plukker han. Og for å komme inn hos Stu så må du betale ekstremt mye penger. En dag med han koster over $20,000. En time med han koster $4,000 per i dag. Han tar bare inn 8 kunder, og believe me, jeg kjempet min vei for å få bruke han som coach. Og måtte dele både verdier, og ja, det var datteren hans som jeg til slutt fikk meg inn i hans sfære. Er du godkjent av Marla, så er du godkjent ut av de andre. Jeg skal ikke gjøre lengre intro til Stu og forholdet mitt til han, men denne podcasten er for meg favoritten min, fordi at det ble en egen coachingsamtale, og jeg lærte så utrolig mye om hvordan du lager gode samarbeid, hvordan du får gode relasjoner, om hvordan du, ja, jeg skal virkelig ikke gi bort mer ut av intervjuet. Stu er i en klasse for seg selv. Jeg tuller ikke når jeg sier at han er den varmeste, mest omsorgsfulle, rå businessperson jeg har møtt. Jeg må jo si at Brenda Burchard er kanskje hakket bedre når det gjelder strategisk businessbygging, men utenom det så er Stu bare helt rå. Han får tale for seg selv. Her er altså Stu McLaren. Hi, Stu.
Hey, Gree.
So good to see you. So this is Stu McLaren. He is my business coach, my friend, and my superhero. So glad to have you here.
Oh, thanks, buddy, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do.
So I was a kid that grew up in a really small town, about an hour and a half south of Toronto in Canada. And where I grew up, basically everybody was essentially in farming, so I was working on a farm when I was, a young teenager all the way up till I went to university. And so that was pretty much like what everybody did. But I had an interest in business. So I went to school for business. But I quickly found out that I was like a square peg in a round hole. I was not meant to go into the corporate world, and I quickly figured that out.
How?
I had this feeling in my stomach, like I signed on the dotted line to start with a big company. My parents were super happy and excited. The salary was more than both of what they were making combined together. I had a company car, benefits. It was all like the dream of what we wanted, but something did not feel good about it. And I thought, this was what I had just graduated. I thought, if I'm going to take a chance on myself, there's no better time than now. Because I was a student. I was used to living on nothing. I was used to scrapping by. And so I thought, I'm going to do it now before I get into a marriage, before I have kids and responsibilities and all that kind of stuff. And so I began as a motivational speaker for high school and college students. And what I realized was, when I was in college, I actually failed out of my first year. And I talked my way back in, and I barely scraped by second year. And third year, everything changed for me because I read a book called Jumpstart Your Brain. And it was by a guy named Doug Hall, and it was all about how to think more creatively. And so I applied that to my schoolwork, and everything took off. Like my grades took off, my relationships took off. That's how I met Amy, was by being creative on our first date. And so I was just passionate about that subject, and so I wanted to share that with more students. So that's how it all began.
And then how did you come up with, because you were one of the partners of Wishlist Members, which is a membership plugin for WordPress?
Yeah, so Wishlist Member blossomed into the world's largest membership site platform for WordPress. And that kind of came about, like, if you would have asked me, like, when I started, like, that would I ever get into software, I would have laughed, because I am, like, the last thing or last person that would be ever considered a programmer. I'm not a programmer whatsoever. Well, how that kind of came about was after a few years of speaking at high schools and colleges, I ended up working with a gentleman who was running seminars. So I was running his company. It was a seminar company. And through that, I met a couple other people who were online and had online businesses, and I was intrigued by that. And then, long story short, one of them asked me to help him in almost like a consulting role because he needed help. And so that kind of took off. This was back in the day. This was like 2005, and I was helping with him with his online launches back then. And this was way before launches are what they are today. We were still old school. Everything was like teleseminars and all that kind of stuff. But it just took off, and people noticed. And next thing I know, I've got this like big consulting practice where I've got amazing clients. I had a like super great income. We were doing 7-figure launches back then, and everything was great. Except what I realized was that my business model was broken, because the only way to grow it was to give more of my time, and I didn't have any more time to give. I was maxed out with the clients that I had, and I knew something had to change. And so I was looking for a way to share what it is that I was helping my clients with more people. And so I looked at a membership site, and at the time, this was 2008, it wasn't easy. Like, technology has evolved so much today, but back then, like, it just wasn't user-friendly. And so I was moaning and groaning to a friend of mine, Tracy, and I was like, man, if I could all I want to do is just create a membership site. Like, I don't want to have to, I'm getting bogged down with the tech. And he said, well, why don't we just create our own solution? And I'm like, dude, like, I am not a programmer. Like, I'm having trouble just setting this up. Like, I'm the last guy to be able to do that. And he said, well, why don't we collaborate together? He's like, I've got a really great program that works with me. And so we did. And so this was August 2008. A month later, we had a beta version. I sold it to my mastermind. I didn't want to give it to them. I wanted to sell it to see if like other people saw the value in it. Everybody bought it. And so then I was like, So then we went public with it and started selling October 22nd, 2008. And then it just took off. And, fast forward 6 years to 2014 when I sold my interest in it, it was powering over 60,000 online communities and membership sites.
Amazing. And then you left that. I mean, super successful, like a runner at the top's gold medal, and here you go, and just retire.
Yeah, well, you know what? Like, it was super successful. It was a multi-7-figure-a-year business. I mean, we had grown a team at the time. We had 22 staff. They were all amazing people. I still felt like we were just scratching the surface. But I think in life, like when things are going really well, it's often the time when we kind of sit back and we don't pay attention to the little clues that may be happening in our life. And so I've always had a practice of putting myself in situations where I feel fear, but I move forward anyway. Okay, so an example would be skydiving. Like, when you're on the edge of the plane and you're about to jump out, I mean, you can't help but feel fear,
I know.
Or bungee jumping, or swimming with sharks, or even like living in a refugee camp for a week. And, these kinds of things, there's a lot of fear that's baked into that. But I have a practice of like intentionally setting myself to do those things multiple times a year. Because in life, when we face those moments, when we have to make a big, tough decision, that can be scary, we need to have the courage to know that we can push forward and through those decisions, even if we are scared. And so for me, it's like muscle memory. It's about like training myself to feel fear and move forward anyway. And this was a perfect example of those moments, because I had just come off reading two very important books that had a huge influence on my life. One was called The One Thing.
I love the book. Yeah.
It's an amazing book.
Yes.
So the authors Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. And then the other book is Essentialism by Greg McKeown. And both are very similar in context, right? Like essentially like encouraging you to focus, get rid of everything else, and just stay focused. So I just read those two books, and then I had just seen my great buddy and friend, business partner Michael Hyatt. He had just done a presentation, and I've seen him live deliver the presentation. And in that presentation, he asked some powerful questions. Like he asked, one of the questions was, what do you want to be remembered by? Another question was like, what brave decision do you need to make today? And like these questions were swirling around in my head. And then it all came together because Amy, Marla, which is my daughter, and we went to a summer camp for families. And, you got a picture like we're out in the wilderness. We're in like this cabin. There's really nothing going on. And the one night we're sleeping in the cabin, and it's pouring rain. And so we got this rain just pounding down on this tin roof. And I woke up in the middle of the night, and I couldn't sleep. And I couldn't go outside because it's raining. I couldn't turn the light on because Amy and Marla are right there beside me. And so I'm just lying there in darkness with my thoughts. And during that time, these two books and Michael's presentations are swirling around in my head, and I started thinking, like, what is it that I really want to do? Like, what is the legacy I want to leave? And what brave decision do I need to make today? And then I was thinking about an exercise in I'm not sure whether it was in The One Thing or Essentialism, but they encourage you to get clear on your decision criterion. So when opportunities come your way, how do you decide whether it's a good decision or a bad decision? Or how do you decide which ones you're going to move forward on? So I figured out my decision criteria. Number one for me is everything I do in my life is to reduce or eliminate bad stress. So good stress is like when you go to the gym and you stress your muscles and you push yourself. Good stress creates growth. Bad stress, that's the stuff that keeps you up at night. That's the stuff that, creates anxiety. And so nobody wants that. And so everything in my life is engineered to eliminate or reduce bad stress. Second thing I realized was that everything I do is centered around creating impact. So you mentioned my wife and I, we have a charity. We build schools over in Kenya. But that's a part of like the impact I want to have. I want to have impact on my family and my friends. I want to have impact in my local community. I want to have impact in my country and ultimately the world. And so there's different layers of that. And that's a huge part of my life. And then the third thing that I realized in terms of how I make decisions is profitability. So if an opportunity comes my way and it doesn't match or exceed the profitability of what I'm currently doing, then I just won't consider it. So based on that, then they say, okay, look at everything that you're doing, rank it on a scale of 1 to 10. Anything less than a 9 or a 10, eliminate it from your life. And they said what happens is most entrepreneurs get stuck working on the 6s, the 7s, and the 8s. And it never allows them to have the breathing room to get to the few things that are really going to not only move the needle, but light you up. You know what I'm saying, Green?
Yeah, I do.
And so when I was looking at everything I was doing and I looked at wish list, I was like, for me, the number that first came to mind was an 8 out of 10. And that's the worst number like you could ever think of, because it's like right on the borderline. And so in my mind, I'm like, well, if we just do this, it'll be a 9. Or if this happens, it'll be a 10. But I'm like, no, what is it right now? And it was an 8 out of 10. And so I realized I had to let it go to create space for the 9s and the 10s in my life. And so Amy woke up that morning and I said, honey, I think I've made a big decision. And she's like, well, tell me about it. What is it? And I said, well, I think I'm going to sell Wishlist. And she's like, why? Tell me why. And so I explained to her. And she's like, okay. She's like, I believe in you and I support you. And that's ultimately what happened. And so I think in life, it's easy to stay in the same spot, especially when you experience success. But if you really want to get things dialed in, you really want to get yourself to the 9s and 10s, you got to create space for that. And so sometimes that means you got to make tough decisions. And this was certainly one of them.
So how did you end up working with Michael Hyatt, and you decided then is it the same process that you decided to leave and then start for yourself? Because it is scary. You told me that yourself, that it was a scary decision. I mean, again, you're at the top of your field and you decide to leave and starting totally, without you don't know the revenues coming in. You don't know that you replace what you made, and no security really when you start for yourself.
Yeah, I think of it very much like an actor who has been pigeonholed into a certain type of role. Think of like an actor who's like a Will Ferrell, for example. Like he's in like these slapstick type comedies, right?
Yeah.
And now that's all. When we think of comedy, that's the only role we can think. So it's a huge jump for him to like try to do a dramatic role, because people. And so that's kind of how I view these business jumps. Like if I were to stay in one thing, I would become like known for like that one type of thing. But I just feel like there's so much more to who I am and to who I want to become. And so how I ended up working with Michael was, while I was still at Wishlist, I was speaking at an event on the topic of membership sites. We were powering over 60,000 online communities and membership sites, so I learned a lot. I learned about like what works, what doesn't work, and so I was teaching that at an event. And somebody came up to me and they said, "Do you know Michael Hyatt?" And I said, "I know of him." I said, I don't know him personally. And they said, "Well, what you're talking about, he could really benefit from, and I'd love to set up a conversation with you two." And I said, great. So Michael and I met. We talked about his business. He was just coming off a New York Times best-selling book, so he was like in high demand as a speaker. He's traveling all over the country. But when I asked him, I said, what's your number one challenge in your business right now? And he said, you know what? I love the message that I have to share, and I love the people I get to serve. He's like, but man, I am tired. He's like, I just want to be home with my wife. I just want to be home with my kids and my grandkids. He was speaking 30, 40, 50 times a year, and you had a day on the front for travel, a day on the back for travel. That meant he was gone over 100 days a year.
Wow.
So I said, well, I think I can help. And so we partnered together, and we created a membership site, and that thing just like took off. And then it completely transformed his business. So then we became partners in his entire business. And we took his business from a high 6-figure to high 7-figure. We took his email list from 70,000 to over 500,000. And we took the number of days that he was on the road from over 100 to less than 15. And we did that in a 3-year period.
Amazing. That's crazy.
So it was fun. And, for me, like the value that I got from it was, yes, financially, it was very lucrative. But that actually wasn't the main reason that I went into that partnership. And I think people often get scared about partnerships. And I've had 3 business partnerships. They've all started great. They've all ended even better. Like we were better friends at the end of it. And one of the things that I was looking to get from that partnership was to learn from Michael. For him, he was a former CEO of one of the largest publishing companies in the world. And the person that you see in public is the exact person that you see in private. Like there's total congruency there. And I wanted to learn how to lead. I wanted to learn how to live a life that that incorporated both family, the things that I love to do, as well as succeed in business. And I didn't want to have to sacrifice one in order to succeed at the other. And I learned a lot from Michael in that regard, and I'm tremendously grateful for the time and the partnership that we had together.
What do you think? When I hear about partnership, it's what you say. It has a bad rap because normally you go in and it's glorious, like when you're in love, and then it ends up like a bad divorce.
Yeah.
So what do you think is the clue to get, a divorce happily after?
I think there's 2 things, and this is probably not. There's one thing that I definitely think everybody can apply, and I think that there's another thing probably about my nature and my characteristics that I'll share with you. But the first thing that everybody can apply is, I learned from one of my early mentors. He said, whenever you go into any type of deal, whether it's just like a project deal or a full-on partnership, he said, you always want the other side feeling like they got the better end of the deal. And I've never forgotten that. Like I always, when you go into a partnership, as long as you're looking out for your partner's best interests, that can't help but succeed. Where it starts to crumble is when people get selfish, and then they start like, well, hang on, I'm putting in more hours and I should get more of this, or this is my idea, I should get more of that. And that's when it creates all kinds of negative energy and negative tension. I've just always approached it based on that piece of advice. Like I always want my partner to feel like they got the better end of the deal. So with Michael, like I always wanted him to feel like he got the better end of the deal. I mean, I always was mindful of like making sure whatever projects we were working on, they were high in profit, low in time commitment, like all kinds of things like that. The second thing I would say is that I don't know if this is a confidence thing or it's that you develop or grow, but I don't fear loss. Like to me, like if the partnership just ended and all the income just went away, and I would just start over. And like I'm not afraid of starting over. I'm not afraid of like using the gifts that I've got, the skills that I've gained, the relationships that I've developed. I'm not afraid of starting from scratch and just building again. And I think too often, like when you reach a certain level of success, you fear losing stuff, and that prevents you from growing into the next chapter or the next phase of your life.
I love that piece of advice. I will write it down and live by it. Thank you. That was the best advice I ever have gotten. I mean, because I do have some partnership that hasn't ended well, and when I'm really honest, I got to be selfish, definitely, and that was probably why it didn't end that well.
Well, I mean, it's natural. It's natural. I mean, you're not alone in that. Sure, I get selfish sometimes too, like we all do. I think it's just if you're looking for the long-term health of any type of relationship, the more we can err on the side of what's in their best interest versus what's in our best interest, it works. It's the same in a marriage, like I can get upset because Amy asked me to go make her a cup of tea, and I'd be like, come on, like, what do you mean, you're right beside the kettle, like slip it on yourself. But she's been with the kids all day. All she wants to do is she just wants to sit down and relax. And so if I just think about it like in what's in her best interest, I'll go make a cup of tea. It's not a big deal. You know what I mean? It's stuff like that.
I love that. So you have the charity with building school in Kenya with Amy, and then you have the most adorable kids I know. I must admit, I'm not a fan of kids, but Marla, I'll take her home anytime. And they are just... She
loves you too.
Oh my gosh, she's so cute. I mean, I will never forget what she said. I gotta tell this story, but we were at your house, and I actually, instead of talking business with you and Michael Hyatt, I ended up reading for Marla, and that, I mean, nobody that knows me would think that was true. But it was just such a connection. And then when her aunt asked her who's her favorite princess, she said Greece, and I'm like, that was the magic moment of 2016. I love her so much. But back to business, Marla and Sam and Amy, and then the charity in Kenya. I mean, there's a lot on Stu McLaren. How do you find, because you're also one of the most balanced person I know. How do you do it all? It's like a famous movie called that. How does she do it?
I appreciate it. I think what I'm really clear on is like why I'm doing all of this. At the end of the day, when I'm on my deathbed, what's going to be important to me in that moment? Is it going to be the size of my bank account? Is it going to be the size of my house? Is it going to be how many cars I have? Is it going to be, the size of my business? What is going to be important in that moment? And what I've realized, and this has come from a lot of great mentors, like Michael Hyatt being one of them, like just even the question of asking, like, how do you want to be remembered? Like, just sit and think about that question. Like, how do you want to be remembered? Do I want to be remembered for the guy that, made a whole bunch of money? Do I want to be remembered for the guy that had a whole bunch of businesses. That's maybe a part of what I want, but not really. I mean, I want to be remembered for, and again, this is my view. This is not everybody else's, but I want to be remembered for changing people's lives. I want to be remembered for having a positive impact. I want to be remembered for, creating happiness. I want to be remembered for positively influencing. I want to be remembered as a great father. I want to be remembered as a great husband. I want to leave my kids with confidence so that they can do whatever they want to do in their lives. That's how I want to be remembered. And so once you get clear on those things, everything gets shaped around that. So you can kind of see, like, for me, like, family is my number one priority. Like, at the end of the day, if I lose everything, the last thing on earth that I ever want to lose are the relationships that I have with my amazing wife, with my incredible kids, with my wonderful parents, with my sister, my brother-in-laws. For me, those are the most important relationships, and that's why they take priority. And so, I'm very aware of how to structure my day so that those things remain a priority. Because the flip side of that, when I was working with a gentleman who had the big seminar company, I was fortunate because in that during that time, I got to see firsthand the opposite. I got to see firsthand what just pure focus on work can and will do to the most meaningful relationships around you. I got to see how outside of work there really was nothing, and I remember in that moment, like, because Amy was actually working, we were working together, and we saw that together, and I think that forever shaped our relationship and forever shaped the priorities that we hold near and dear to our heart. And so I think when you get clear on your why, it will shape everything from that point thereafter.
But you do get amazing opportunities. I know that. How do you know which one to grab onto and which one to say no to, even though it's bright and shiny?
Well, we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, like that decision criterion that I got clear about. So for me, number one is to eliminate bad stress, to eliminate or reduce bad stress. So even if, like, an opportunity comes my way where I could make tens of millions of dollars or even more, but it would mean that it would be high stress, it's just, for me, it's just not something that I gravitate towards. Some people thrive on that. But
what's bad stress to you?
Bad stress is like when I'm up at night and all I'm thinking about is, like, this has got to happen. If this doesn't happen, then, like, this is going to crumble, or like all this high pressure. Like, for me, I don't want that. I don't want to be like. I was watching a speech that President Barack Obama was giving, and he was joking around about how in the last 8 years he's aged, and he's aged a lot.
No, his hair is totally gray now.
Totally gray, and he was saying how his kids were making fun of him. And I was thinking about that. I'm like, that's why. I am so glad there are people that want to fulfill those roles, but that's not the kind of role that I want to fulfill. Like, I do not want to be working all the time in, like, these constant high pressure, high stakes environment. That's stressful for me. What's not stressful is, like, working on fun projects, not having to worry about money, not having being able to spend time with the kids and the family, and being able to travel and all that kind of stuff. So
being at Hawaii in summer, now in winter.
Yeah, exactly. Like, being able to do things that I love to do and have time to do the things that I love to do is really important for me. And so, like, when I don't have those things, when financially there's a squeeze, like, I've had financial squeezes in my life for sure, and when there's a financial squeeze, it creates a ton of stress. I'll tell you another thing that creates stress for me is just, like, identifying the things just in your regular life that cause stress. Like, this is going to sound so trivial and silly and stupid, but, like, when Amy and I made a list of the things that stress us out, there were 3 things on the top of that list. Number one was cooking. Like, neither of us like to cook. We love to eat, but we do not like to cook. And so when it was just Amy and I, we would play this game, Gree. Like, we would secretly try to hold out for as long as we could, hoping that the other person was going to get hungry. And then by default, they would make dinner for both of us. And then when that happened, the dinners were awful. Like, it was crappy food because we hate cooking. So we'd throw something in the microwave. And it was, God, it makes me sick just thinking about it. So that stressed us out. Second thing that stressed us out was laundry. And so I'm ashamed to admit this, but like, I literally had hundreds of t-shirts. And part of the reason was because I would just like keep wearing the t-shirts and my stack of t-shirts would start decreasing and the laundry would start increasing until I get to the bottom of this stack. I'm like, oh my God, look at this mountain of laundry. And so then it was like huge stress fest, you know, and Amy and I would try to do it together and we'd put a load in and then we'd forget and it was wet and stinky. We'd have to do it all again. It was a nightmare. So like that stressed us out. And like, just even because we were busy, we were building our business and building the charity, just like having friends over meant that we would need to clean up. And it was just that stuff stressed us out. And so what we did was we started identifying what are the things that are stressing us out and what can we do to alleviate that stress. And, you know, fortunately for us, we figured out a way to be able to get some help in all of those areas. And I can tell you, Gree, there's like, we call it life before Leanne and life after Leanne. Leanne is who we hired to help us. And it's night and day. And I mean, the quality of our life shot up. The amount of stress in our house plummeted. And the quality of our relationships improved dramatically because now Amy and I, we weren't going to bed at each other and nicky and nacky, and we had time with our kids, like, and not time where like you're with the kids, but you're distracted because you're, doing laundry, putting socks together and like cleaning dishes, but time where like we're reading together, we're writing together, we're playing in the pool together, I'm running around the house playing hide and seek with the kids. Like, this is an everyday occurrence, and I love it, and that's the quality time that I get. Because I was able to identify what stresses me out, we were able to get help with the things that to alleviate that stress. You know, another good example is Amy and I invest in a lot of property. And I remember saying to Amy, like, I am the least handy guy you can think of. Like, I am not a fixer-upper kind of a guy. And I said, Amy, we cannot buy properties that are going to require, me to do something because I can't do it. So we'd have to hire somebody. Okay, she's got it. And I said, the last thing is that I do not want to be discussing our rental properties or the tenants or anything at night. I'm like, that's just not something I want a part of my life. She's like, okay, I got it. So we started to invest in these properties. And sure enough, what ended up happening was like, we'd have conversations about these tenants that are terrible, or like, we've had to fix this on the property and now this is gone and another tenant's calling about this, that, and it was just like,
always a dishwasher that is broken when you do property.
Totally. The last thing I want to hear about is how somebody's toilet is not working and how we got to.
I know.
So what we ended up doing is we hired a property manager. Yes, we lose some of the money that we would have made, or it cuts into our revenue. But you know what? I don't deal with any of that stress anymore. Like, it's gone. And so those are the kinds of things where you identify where the stress is coming from, and then I look to put things in place to eliminate it. And so that's how I look at opportunities. When an opportunity comes my way, I just look at, like, is this going to be stressful? And, if it doesn't meet my stress test, it doesn't even go on to the second one. Can I create impact from this? And then the third one is, will it be profitable? So that's how I make my decisions.
Awesome. So you're launching your first online product now, like a big launch you've been doing, and you take time on these launches. Do you feel the pressure? Like Stu McLaren is on the spot. I mean, it's you, and many in our environment, in our little tiny online world, they know about you and expect big numbers, big sales, big everything. Do you feel the pressure in any way?
A little bit, yeah, for sure. I wouldn't be fully transparent if I said no, but for years I've done big launches, behind the scenes for others, like for Michael or for some of my clients and so forth. And so I've done orchestrated and been behind many seven-figure launches. You know, I think I'm now up to 12 where I've been personally involved in crafting the strategy and executing on it.
So for the Norwegian, 7 figures is $1 million, and $1 million is about $8 million. So no, 8 million Norwegian crowns. So that's just when you hit the 7 figures, and then it's like 8 million Norwegian crowns and up. So that's a heck of a lot of money. You American, you say 7-figure launches. It sounds like no big deal, but it's a huge deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal. And so like I've got lots of experience. So I'm coming from a place where I've got lots of experience with the strategy side. I've got lots of experience with like executing and making these things happen. But I'm telling you, it's a totally different ball game when it's your own launch. And here's why. When I'm working with business partners or I'm helping clients with their launches, I'm coming at it because I know the strategy is going to work. I'm confident in the strategy. I'm confident in them. I'm confident in like the transformation that their product or service is going to create. When it's your own stuff, you got all this mental baggage, that's just swirling around. We all deal with self-doubt. No matter what level of success you get to, you're going to deal with self-doubt. And so like it's like an emotional roller coaster, like 1 minute, like we've been working so hard on like our video scripts as an example. And it took me weeks to write the scripts. And then we were spending like a couple of weeks, like grabbing all the footage for it and everything. And then I get the first draft of the video and I was just like, oh, it's not what I had envisioned. And so like now my heart sinks and I'm in this low and now I'm starting to freak out. I'm like, my gosh, we're going to have to like reshoot these. We don't have time. Like, how am I going to fit this in? And I'm like on this like low. And then literally like the same day, I'm talking to a potential joint venture partner. And in that conversation, this particular person said, yeah, dude, I'm totally on board. I mean, this person never promotes anybody else. In fact, I'll be the second person that he's ever promoted. He's one of my dear friends for a long time, Russell Brunson. And he's like, yeah, I'm in. And so now I'm on like this super high because like that one phone call was literally worth like hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so it's just like in a day you go from low to high because there's so much personal baggage that's all wrapped up into this.
And that's like, every day when you launch.
Totally. And so, yes, I'm confident in what we're doing. We're already seeing the momentum build and the results that are starting to already come up. We haven't got to launch because, as you said, like I like to have a long build up for it. But there's still all that personal baggage that's wrapped up into that. And I think that don't ever let anybody fool you. We all experience self-doubt. We all experience like those kinds of emotions. And you're not human if you don't experience them, in my opinion, but we just get better at dealing with them, but we still experience them.
Awesome. So you are very heavily involved with Amy in building schools. And I mean, that's millions of dollars making huge impact in Kenya. And I've been seeing them myself, like the transformation from a school being, on your potential list, the hopes they got and the poverty, the pain they have. And then I've seen school that just started and then school that's been, successful for 3 years. And the transformation is just enormous. And it just, that's one of the best trips in my life. It's the best trip, even though it was hard.
It wasn't your typical luxury Greece trip, that's for sure.
That's for sure. Anyway, how did you get into charity, and how? Many of us wants to do an impact, and many of us wants to make a difference in that kind of way. How did you guys get into it, and what drives what motivates you to keep on doing that?
Well, I have to give all the credit to my wife, Amy. She is the visionary. She has always had a big vision and a big heart, and I think for her it started because she was a teacher by trade, and then she loved to travel. So she would travel to all these, countries, and she would go off the beaten path. Like she wasn't going to your typical like tourist destination. And when she would travel to different third world countries, for example, she saw so many kids who wanted education but just didn't have the means, or there wasn't a school nearby or what have you. So for us, it all began, like we used to watch back in the day, Oprah had a show called The Big Give. And she would go into like a community in the U.S. and she would contribute a whole bunch of money, and they would do a whole bunch of things to transform a couple people's lives in that community. It was amazing. And so after every show, we'd be like, "Oh, this is so great!" And then we'd be like crying, we'd be like, "Oh!" It was like, it was amazing. And so, but after one episode, Amy turned to me and she's like, "I want to do something like this." And I was like, "Okay," like I'm supportive. I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it." And she's like, but instead I want to go to a third world country, and I want to do something like this, but in a third world country. I was like, "Great, let's do it." This was like the second week in December. I remember it specifically because then I said to her, "Well, when do you want to do it?" And she said, "Over the Christmas holidays." And I was like, "Well, wait a minute." I'm like, "And that's in like 2 weeks." And she said, "I know." She said, "I'll organize all the travel. You're the business guy. You figure out how to raise the money." I was like, "Great." So
no pressure.
Yeah. So we put together an online fundraiser, and in that period of time, we raised $17,000.
Whoa!
We took it down to the first place we went to was El Salvador, and Amy always told me, she said, "You know what? Like you'll realize the power and the incredible pleasure that you will get from actually seeing the people that you're helping." It's like it's one thing to write a check. It's something totally different, as you have experienced, Gree.
Definitely.
To actually go and see the people that are benefiting from your generosity. And when you do that, it just takes on a whole different meaning. And I don't want to speak on your behalf, but I know for me, like when I experienced it, it made me more hungry to want to make a lot more money and to contribute in a much bigger way.
Do you agree?
And and that was the vision that Amy had. And so like, after that first trip, I remember on our flight home, I looked at her, I said, "I get it. Let's figure out a way to make this official." So then, a couple years passed, and finally we got all the paperwork and got it all approved. We became an official charity. And then for whatever reason, we both had a heart for Africa. I can't explain it, but we both wanted to go to that side of the world. And we ended up focusing in Kenya, and that's where we've been building schools. And that's ultimately what we zeroed and focused on, was building schools. Because that's where we could have the greatest impact in the shortest amount of time.
It's amazing. And I mean, just seeing how the money actually comes, sometimes you give and you never know where the money ends up. I have seen you guys, you are giving everything, and you're really... like when the sponsors came down there, we pay that ourselves. It doesn't go out of any money, and it warms my heart to see the transformation with these girls and boys. I mean, the kids are just amazing. And for myself, when I come back, I was like, I still appreciate that I can flush the toilet. I still appreciate, when I do go to a 4-star hotel or actually a 5-star hotel, I'm looking at that pillow and remember how freaking lucky I am. So, I mean, it does something to your everyday life after.
Totally. And I want to acknowledge you, Gree. I mean, like, it's the way that you contributed was incredible, and the impact that you have had in that community is unbelievable. And that will continue on now for years and years and years. I mean, that to me is like one of the greatest things ever, is like bringing people like yourselves over to see the impact that you have had. And then the trip itself, I mean, it's not an easy trip,
Hallelujah. Amen.
But as you said, it gives you a much greater appreciation for like the lives that these people live on an everyday basis. And when you come back, I mean, it puts things in perspective. It makes you realize just how fortunate we are. And this is the most important thing for me, just what an opportunity that we have as entrepreneurs to shape our own lives and to impact other people's lives. I mean, that for me is why I get so fired up about entrepreneurship, because never before have we had the kind of opportunity that we have right now to make as much money as we want, to shape our own lives, to shape the lives of everybody else's. And I just firmly believe that the more money we make, the more impact we can have. And that's why I love entrepreneurship.
I do too. And if for all the listeners, please click on the link that we will give you underneath the video and on the video, so that you can, if you want to contribute, we have Stu's links. And I promise you, every dime goes to this amazing school. So what's your next project, by the way?
So now what's happened is, after the success of and transformation of Michael Hyatt, a lot of people started asking me, hey, how can we do that for our business? So I started doing private workshops all over the world. I did one in California, one in Toronto, one in Hawaii where you attended. I did one in Brazil. And these are really high-end workshops for people who have an expertise or have an influence, or they have something that they want to share, but they want to be able to generate recurring revenue from doing that, just like what we had done with Michael. And with Michael, by the way, like, the crazy stat is we grew his membership from, in the first week we had 1,100 members. After the first year we had 2,500. After the second year, 4,500. After the third year, 6,000, and it continues to grow now. And so, like, yeah, people wanted to learn, how do I do that? And so I started sharing that in those workshops, like the one that you attended. And then I realized, like, there's only so many people I can reach with those workshops. How do I package that in a way that I can help a lot more people? And so now what we're doing is we're building up to the launch of a course version of that workshop. And so it's everything I know about building highly successful and profitable membership sites. It's everything that I learned from the 60,000 plus membership sites that we powered with Wishlist, and what the few that we're doing amazing we're doing, that's what we've taken, those best practices, and we're sharing it in a course. And you can find out everything there with a free workshop that we're doing by going to tribeworkshop.com.
I'm so excited. When is that launching? What is the date?
So the first part of the free workshop starts August 18th. And then the live workshop, in terms of like the course version, that starts September 5th.
Oh, I can't recommend that highly enough. I couldn't wait, so I had to travel to Toronto, and I'm telling you, the course is going to cost a heck of a lot less than going to Toronto. And
That's right.
And giving even more value. Before I round up, what's the best advice you ever received, and for who? From whom?
Wow, that's a tough one. I've been very fortunate to have some amazing mentors and people that speak into my lives, but Okay, here's the best piece of advice. This was given to me from a friend of mine. His name is David Fry. He also sits on the board of our charity. And this was in 2006. This was right when Amy and I were actually talking about the charity. And I was putting on my own seminar at the time, and David was one of the speakers who I had invited. And he had an interest in building schools and doing that kind of stuff. So he and Amy were engaged in conversation, and then he was just a dear friend, and I think he saw the trajectory of where my career was kind of going. And he pulled me aside and he said, Stu, a long time ago, somebody shared a quote with me that I want to share with you because I think it's going to be really important for you. I said, okay. And the quote was, no amount of success will ever make up for failure in the home. No amount of success will ever make up for failure in the home. And what that did was, he shared it to me, and it was at a time when Amy and I actually weren't married at that time. We didn't have any kids. So family was not like high on my priority list just because I didn't have one. But it always stuck with me because of the experience that I was sharing with you about like the where I got to see firsthand where not focusing on not family and not making it a priority, what that did to different people's lives.
Yeah.
And so when he said no amount of success will ever make up for failure in the home, it just always stuck with me. And I think that has served as a foundation for how I make decisions, how I design my business, how I run my life. And at the end of the day, just like what we were talking about, I want to be remembered as a great father. I want to be remembered as an amazing husband. I want to be remembered as a great friend and a contributor to my community and the country and the world and so forth. And I think it all starts with, realizing your priorities. And that quote basically sums it up.
Wow, I take away so much knowledge, and I will take action on that. With the partnership, wow, that was empowering, and also the way you make decisions is just amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your genius, Stu.
Thank you for having me, buddy. And listen, I love and appreciate you, and I hope that your community realizes just how amazing you are. You know, you and I get a chance to interact off camera. And I want your community to know just how much you care for them. You know, every time we're together, you're focused on helping them, serving them, and making their lives better. And it's important for them to know that you hold them in such a high regard. And I think that that's a great character attribute of somebody who is there for their community and will continue to be there for their community and makes that a priority. So kudos to you too, my friend.
Thank you so much, Stu. Det var altså Stu. Digger du han like mye som meg, eller? Jeg lurer på, hva lærte du, og hva blir du å ta action på? Ikke glem det, at kunnskap uten action er verdiløs. Så fortell meg i kommentarfeltet, gå på grysynding.no/53 og fortell hva du tok med deg av dette intervjuet. Og var det beste du noen gang har hørt på Gründerkanalen, så gå inn og ta deg tid til å rate oss på iTunes. Og send Stu en liten hilsen. Mange ting, men det klarer du. Jeg digger at du henger med oss. Jeg digger at du er her på Gründerkanalen. Tusen takk for at du igjen var her. Og var det din første gang du har vært her, så få med deg gründertesten, for den er viktig. For alle oss gründer, den mentale treningen, hvis du har tatt det med deg fra dette intervjuet, det er hvordan du tenker som avgjør om du blir å lykkes eller ikke. Selv Stu, selv de aller største, har utfordringer når det butter på, og vi får ting som kommer i trynet på oss, og da er det om å gjøre å være mentalt sterk. Så gå på grysynding.no/gründertesten og hopp i den. Og så må jeg jo fortelle deg at du må sette av kalenderen din til 8. september, for da kommer det den viktigste treningen i hele år. Den heter altså salgssystemet. Jeg gleder meg så til å dele det med deg. Jeg var nettopp sammen med Dan Sullivan og Peter Diamandis. Google de om du vil, de er rå. Og jeg hadde en presentasjon om salgssystemet, og de var bare blown away. Og det er det jeg skal gjøre med deg, og blow you away. For dette må du bare ha. Ha en strålende dag, så høres vi neste uke. Jeg håper du ble superinspirert til å ta nye action etter denne episoden av Gründerkanalen pluss mye mer. Gå nå til grysynding.no og legg igjen en kommentar på denne episoden om hva du tar med deg. Jeg vil gjerne høre fra deg. Og få mer gründertrening på skapdindrømmejobb.no. Glem heller ikke å abonnere sånn at vi treffes neste gang på Gründerkanalen pluss mye mer. Ha en fantastisk dag, så høres vi.